Hey everybody, I'm Simply D,
This is Jules.
and
Sorry we're late.
man, we are so late, but we kind of had some, look, I've been sick. I'm not going to even front. So if y'all see some, watery eyes or some sniffling nose, we sick over here, yo. And it took a minute to get everything together where we weren't looking a hot mess. How's my hair? How's my hair?
Better than mine.
I wish I could do the bun thing with mine. I can't seem to get that working. But so what we're gonna do is we're gonna give you as much time as we can. But we do apologize for the late notice. But let me tell you real quick that first off, you guys can follow us on social media. We got Twitter, which is Innermix_show. We got Facebook, just type in Innermix. We got Instagram at Innermix360, and we have Google Plus, which is plus Innermix Show. Now, next week, I believe that's our last show of the year. Let me check to make sure.
I think we have two more.
Do we have two more? Okay.
Yeah.
If we have two more, then what I'm about to say makes no sense, so never mind. But our last show of the year, basically, we're going to be doing a wrap-up of the year. We're bringing on the new shows that are going to be on the network next year and a whole bunch of really cool things. We're going to have a great group discussion. And then once a month, I believe, with the new shows, we're going to be doing a big end-of-month roundtable with the new shows every month so that you have different perspectives on the same topics, things that I got covered, highlights from each show, all that good stuff. You guys have been kind of asking, for the variety and the things that and the other. Well, Innermix is taking on a new twist at the new year, after the new year, where we will be not only talking about love and relationships, but we're going to throw the life element in. And I know you say we already talked about life, but we're actually talking about giving more commentary on what we have noticed, whether it's in the news or whether it's, in social media news or, all kinds of things.
Events.
Yeah, current events. Thank you. That's the word. So, so that we can kind of bring things in so that you guys can kind of get a better idea of what we really look at in the world around us, not just talking about heartache, pain, joy, laughter. We're doing a little bit of everything. So starting next year, you guys are going to know us for life, love, and relationships. Okay? So so that's going to be fun. We have a lot happening in January. We have a lot of things happening. So really excited about
lot of things.
A lot of things. Matter of fact, we're gonna have to make a change to one of them things. But we got a lot of things going on. So in this episode, we were supposed to be, and we kind of will, but probably not to the extent that we were going to originally because sick. But excuse me. But we're going to talk about stereotypes. There are things going on around the world and right now that deal with ethnic or
cultural, or economical,
demographic stereotypes. So and this conversation was actually sparked by a few things, but we received a letter from one of you guys that was asking about our perspective on house versus apartment. They said they came to visit a friend in Southern California, but they're from out of the country. And in their country, it is not uncommon for people to just live in apartments, and it's pretty much apartment living everywhere you go because the country is so tight. Everybody's pretty much stacked on top of each other. And but they said that when
like
they came,
Korea.
Oh yeah, like Korea and some parts of China, and and I was like, okay, yeah. But then they were talking about how one of their friends didn't necessarily want to invite people over to their place because they lived in an apartment, and they felt ashamed that they lived in an apartment versus living in a house. And they were asking, is this normal for you to be looked down upon if you're living in California if you live in an apartment versus a house? And I was thinking about this because, well, they went on to basically say, if this is the case, how they said selfish and a bunch of other words. But basically, it was just like, it was basically talking about, why would you look down on somebody who lives in an apartment versus a house? What makes you better and just that. So they went on a bit of a tangent because I guess they were just so insulted by the idea because the person's apartment was like, basically they described like 2 to 3 times bigger than the one they live in their country. Yeah, so, they're like, you have so much space and you have so much food and you have so much this and so much that, and yet you're told that you're not.
Why are you complaining?
Yeah, basically. So, so I really wanted to take a look at that because I think there kind of is this thing, but it's not in the overall United States. Like in New York, if you have an apartment, that's fine. But it's such
that's great.
Yeah.
Do you know how expensive apartments are in New York?
For how little?
For a tiny little bathroom, it's like $5,000.
Yeah. I was looking at, how you watch like certain house shows, like we like to watch House Hunters, and I'm looking at this thing and somebody paid like $300,000 for 500 square feet. My apartment's bigger than that. I'm like, what? And it wasn't even fixed up. Like you saw paint falling off here. You can put more money into that, and you want to just own that. Well, the view, the view ain't gonna give me more space,
I went to New York to visit my friend a couple of years ago. It was actually our birthday party celebration type of thing because we have similar birthdays. And so we went to New York. We did like a Airbnb thing, kind of. We rented an apartment from somebody, and the apartment rent was like, well, apparently they pay $2,500 per month. So I was thinking $2,500. That's gotta be a decent apartment. It was a 2-bedroom. The way it was presented to me, 2-bedroom, has a kitchen. 2 bathrooms, 1 bathroom, 1 bathroom, 2 bedroom, 1 bath. So we go. First of all, the bathroom is literally just a toilet, basically, and like a stand-up shower. I don't even remember if they had a shower. Yes, there was a shower, a very, very small shower.
So no bun? No bun in the shower?
The kitchen is connected. There is no such thing as a living room. It's just a kitchen. You open the door and it's the kitchen. It's a tiny, tiny kitchen. All you can fit in there is there's the sink and the fridge and maybe some chairs, a couple chairs. And then you have no room to actually even move around. I don't even know how they got furniture in there, first of all. And then there's 2 bedrooms. All you can fit there is the bed. And the door won't even open all the way because it hits the bed. So that's how small these apartments are, and $2,500. So, and the people pay this because to live in the city, because you don't really need to pay for a car.
Right.
There's so much transportation. And hence you don't need to pay for insurance. And then also you don't have to pay for gas. So they think, it kind of equates, equals out. But still, $2,500, like you said, for a 500 square foot, maybe even less apartment. But that's big money. So there should be, but that's also the norm. So there's no reason to be embarrassed or feel less than or anything because you're paying good money.
Well, I think there's
for a lot of people that's that's their what they take home from work.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, that's most of America's paycheck. Because the average, I was looking at this the other day. The average income for an American, overall is like somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 a year. Okay, that is the average income for most Americans. Now, and I was thinking about that, and just like, do you know the poverty level in certain states has risen because of cost of living? So because of that, now instead of like poverty level used to be $21,000 or somewhere between $21,000 $24,000 depending on what state you lived in. Now it's 28 to in some states $30,000 is poverty.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I'm like, can you imagine that?
It makes sense. I mean, just paying rent and then paying for gas and paying for insurance, and then that's your entire paycheck. You have no money for food.
So and that's why they raised it so that people could still qualify for assistance for food. And when you realize that you're working your butt off, you're making about $30,000 a year, and you can't afford to eat, That's, man. And yet, in some countries, you make, half that, in the year, and you're still able to do everything you need to do. It's just tight, but you're still able to do everything you need to do. But we were looking at some of the things that are going on right now. Like, just a couple days ago, this is what I find interesting. Just a couple days ago, Jules and I were in a meeting, and the meeting got sidetracked because we were talking about what's going on in the U.S. right now, and when it comes down to these, police officers choking out people or killing people and all these other things. And we were just saying how, even though the Ferguson situation, there was a lot of rioting, there wasn't rioting necessarily attached to this particular incident happening in New York, where there were, where somebody got caught on tape, where a cop got caught on tape choking somebody out. And then this morning I turned on the news and I'm hearing about, because I guess I missed it yesterday, but apparently there were some protests going on in Northern California, and they are throwing explosives and bottles and trying to light cops on fire. I mean, just crazy stuff. It's going on in, what city was that? What is our state capital?
Sacramento?
Sacramento. It's somewhere around the Sacramento area. So, been a long day, yo. But there's crazy rioting going on, and it's just ridiculous, like the amount of stuff. Like in Ferguson, there was a lot of, throwing bottles, rocks, blah, blah. So when I heard people were throwing rocks, bottles, and explosives at the police, explosive devices, I'm like, what? Who stays at home and says, you know what, I can't wait for this ride to jump off because, see, I got me some explosives I ain't used. That...
I don't understand what they're trying to achieve with all this rioting.
Well, really, what
good comes out of it at all?
Well, there's a lot of looting going on, and so people call themselves, so like like somebody once said, like I heard somebody say on the news that this is the best time for rioting because everybody can get what they want on their Christmas list and not have to pay for it, because you can't go after everybody, so people are going to get people who want tablets are going to go beat up Best Buy or Walmart or whatever because, the security is not going to be able to stop them. It's going to be too many people at one time. And so it's almost like the person on the news is giving a description on how to loot correctly, almost. It was very...
Oh, my.
Yeah, it was like, nah, because like people are going over here, and then, but it was the dude who was describing this was Caucasian. So that must have automatically blown people's minds. Now, the place that's... is it Oakland that they're doing? I don't know. Anyway, but it was just a whole bunch. It's just a bunch of craziness. But I was looking at something when I was, listening to this, and then I started looking more information up on just rioting in general and why people tend to want to go this route. And let's just cut out all the opportunists at first, right? Let's cut the opportunists out of this discussion because there are always opportunists no matter what the situation. People are always going to say, what's in it for me? Let me get what I want out of the deal. A lot of people, basically, when they feel like they've been pushed around so much, they need a reason to explode. You always hear this about watch out for the quiet ones because they're the ones who are going to be the most dangerous when they get pushed against the wall. Well, so I made a phone call today, and I was talking to a couple of therapists, and they say, imagine this. So they started asking me questions like, have you ever been persecuted? Have you ever had somebody just tell you that you weren't going to do, you could never be, and no matter how much you think you're accomplishing, what you're accomplishing, it means nothing? This is what, particularly some demographics feel all the time. Like no matter how much they go out and try to accomplish, they feel like they're always being pushed down, told they can't do, and it's been this way for them for a long time. And now they're being told that the legal system is trying to revert back to the old way of doing things by simply saying it doesn't matter what happens to your life as long as our lives are protected. And so without people looking at it, because there's a big question going around online right now talking about, does racism really still exist? and do you, and what do you,
very much so.
say again? Say again, Jules.
Very much so.
Oh, yeah. So,
I said racism very much so exists today.
So the question is, have you ever been put into a position where you feel like no matter what you do, you're never going to get any further than where you are right now? No matter how good you are, no matter how smart you are, no matter, how much you help other people accomplish their dreams, you're never going to get any further than you are right now. Not because you don't deserve it, but because systems have been put in place for you not to get any further. And what happens is people get to the point where they say, no matter what I do, I'm always going to be wrong, so I might as well just be wrong. And I think that's where people, so everybody's looking for a fuse. It's kind of like in relationships when people cheat, and they say, well, I cheated because you always thought I was cheating. So because you always thought I was, I didn't want you to be a liar anymore, so I just went out and did what I was going to do. Or if you tell somebody that they're crazy when they're younger, and they start to believe that they are because you keep saying it enough. Well, what's going on is like society keeps telling, and it's funny because people always think it's a black and white issue, but really it's a, and right now there are lots of big and black and white issues going on. But really what's happening is a lot of the U.S. is being broken up into not only black and white, but what demographic do you belong to? So you can be affluent black, right? Like I heard this today. It's like you can be affluent black, but you can only be affluent black if you are in entertainment in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Because if it's for your brain, then like it's because you invented something, or if it's because it's not as respected.
If it's for your brain, it's not as respected?
No, because that's not what affluent blacks should be known for. They shouldn't be known for, doing something outside of entertainment. They shouldn't be known for doing something outside of sports. It should not be something, so either you are an actor or a singer or a sports, because we've made space for the black community in those areas. But if it's for you being extraordinarily, brilliant, then yeah, that's great. But we're not going to recognize that person. We're not going to really pay attention to that person the way we need to pay attention to the other ones, because those are the ones that we promote. And I thought of, I was thinking about this as somebody made the statement, and I was like, so what's the role that's been, designated for each ethnicity, right? And
how is that statement true when we have a black president?
We do have a black president, but that black president gets beat up on by everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like you can be a black president, but the reason that we have a black president is because they say because all the blacks voted for that president, where all the whites were divided between other people. So the blacks stole. Actually, I've actually heard the statement: the blacks stole the vote, and the minorities helped the blacks steal the vote because everybody doesn't like white people. Basically the election was a white bashing party apparently. And I'm like, that is so interesting.
What?
Yeah. It is like if you're not white, then you're against white. If you're, and that's the way a lot of people looked at it was if you're not white, then you are against white. Because why else would you vote for a black president? Because you just didn't like white.
That is ridiculous.
And so now this is the thing, even in Congress, they're having similar but more politically correct conversations about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, this president has jacked up, blah, blah, blah. This president is, acting illegally. This president is blah, blah. But the president is doing what everybody is, shuffling their feet on. So it's like, okay, somebody has to make a decision. You can't keep going back and forth about people's lives and livelihood. You can't do that, so somebody make a decision. It's a very interesting thing. So... and the thing is, I don't even agree with everything the president does, but how often do you agree with everything that the person in charge is doing?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is it's still one of those things where there's the big divide. And just like with healthcare, or when it comes down to immigrants, or when it comes down to just anything, he's been fighting. Like, you see how gray his hairs have gotten?
He's been fighting, yeah. He's been fighting teeth and nail. I know that.
Yeah.
it's been bad.
Yeah. So it's just a very interesting situation. But now, apparently, what people have started to notice is that governmental situation, like when people, like, so the top of government, other than the president, is still primarily white, right? And you have a few Hispanics, like especially in Congress, you have a few Hispanics. I don't really know if there's more than 3 or 4 Asians in Congress. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really don't know, but I do know there's a few Hispanics. There's a few. There are a few homosexuals that just came out, within the last couple of years in Congress and all that. But it's really, everybody's been relegated to, look, this is what you do, and this is what we'll accept from you. If you do anything other than this, just like there's still a big issue. In I think I said this before. I was in a meeting a couple weeks ago, and there's still a very big issue with Asians in media. Like, if you're not talking about pop culture or giving the weather on the news, it's very rare that you see a anchor that's an Asian, especially an Asian female. But people have said, well, yes, but we need to make our show pop, so we'll give her the anchor position because she looks good because she's Asian. And what we'll do, but you don't see Asian men. You hardly ever see Asian men anywhere on the news.
The only one you think of is Rob Fukusaki.
Yeah, but I mean, not even in the weather or whatever, because this statement was made, and I was like, wow. It's because, and here's the thing, they always say, well, we're all men here, and we know what the truth is. This is how these conversations kind of go. We're all men here. Let's just be honest, okay? It's not because she's not qualified that we're not bringing her in. It's because she doesn't look the part. And you know what that means. She doesn't look like somebody that you would want to hook up with. So it doesn't matter how talented she is. Or she can't give her that role because we want her to be the sexy one on the side. So when it comes down to Asians, or who's going to take her seriously because she's an Asian? She doesn't look American enough. So can we make her look more American? I'm like, wow. This is something. And then I love when people say, so what do you think, D?
So really what they mean is, can we make her look more white?
Yes.
Because America is not white.
This is America. But yes, because other roles, okay, the roles that have been delegated out, we talked about the black. That's athletes and basically athlete security guards, because almost every bouncer at the club is going to be a black guy. And this is what I found out. Apparently, you get black bouncers at your club because they look more intimidating.
Yes. I know this too.
Yeah, I'm like, really?
And there's always a guy named Tiny who weighs 350 pounds.
Or some short name, yeah.
Or Shorty or something. He's like 6'5".
But the thing I've always wondered is, haven't you seen the skinny black security guard? But I'm like, how's he gonna stop anything? And they're like, oh, don't worry about it, he's black, so people will just leave him alone.
Maybe at an Asian club.
Maybe. Girl, I don't know. Like, so anyway, so it's security type stuff, football, basketball, sports type stuff. Not soccer too much because unless you're talking about a specific country that has like black people in it, because that's different. Apparently, those are different blacks. like Brazil is a different black than American black. See, because that's a whole different black. Africa black is different black. Apparently, I'm like, okay, and then it's like, well, you don't understand, D, but I'm telling you, it's just a different kind of black, and that's why we don't really deal with those kinds of blacks unless we need money.
Oh God.
And then
it's too funny. It's comical. It's funny.
I was told what, in that same meeting, I was told, but don't worry about it, D. I mean, we talk to you because, we deal with you because you're not really black. You're not like the black guy. You're more like the, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. And and it's a compliment, apparently.
Well, so what black are you?
Girl, I don't know.
You know what I mean, black?
About African black, apparently, I don't know. Brazil, I don't know. No, but they're like, and people tell, and I've had this compliment given to me several times where people say, well, you're not really black, so that's why we work. That's why we can work with you, or that's how come we can talk to you, or whatever, because you're not like those other black guys. So, okay.
Okay.
So, so then,
Interesting.
so then Hispanics. Now, I thought this was a really interesting rundown when I took a look at this. So, Hispanics are primarily homemakers and sex vixens, right? They are. If you're talking about the homemaker, she has to be overweight. She can be a maid, because that falls underneath homemaker. She can be a servant of some kind. It has to be a service role. So most waitresses and I thought about this later. It's like most waitresses in the media situations, like in movies and stuff, are either white girls who are living in really bad situations, loud black women, or overweight Hispanics. Right? And I'm like,
oh yeah.
I'm like, huh. They're like, yeah, D, you gotta do the. They said, because look, this is what's expected. You're gonna have a slick-tongued, with it black waitress who's either complaining all the time or knows everything about everything. You gotta have the Hispanic one. Now, she speaks really good English, that she has a little bit of attitude. If she doesn't, then she really is just sexy and looking for somebody to take her out of her poor life situation. Or you have. Or you have the white girl who fell on hard times in life and is struggling to get to a better life. I said, so this is how it's viewed around the primarily. This is how this is the view. This is what it's really, because remember that art imitates life. So this is how Americans see the Hispanics. They're workers, and they're cheap labor. They're homemakers. So all they do is, so it's about producing babies and this, that, and the other. In media, they're the hot weather girl or whatever. And then when they get over a certain age, then they can go to the anchor desk because they don't look good anymore. I was like, wow. Well, they're cute enough, but they're not like hot. So that way people take what they say seriously or more seriously. And then somebody told me if your news show is starting to tank, you bring in the Latina or the Asian girl, because that's what people tune in for, not the news. They tune in to look at the hot girl. And that's how you save your news show. So I'm like, wow. So then I had to ask, what's the Asian, what is the role for the Asians? Well, they're the scientists. They're the ones who are going to always create stuff for us that we can use, so it's more like the math, sciences, blah, blah. That's what the Asian community is all about. They are terrible drivers. They're rude. They think they know business, but they really don't know as much as they think they know, because ultimately they're just trying to impress us. And I'm like, whoa.
Wait, what? Yeah, let's say that to the Samsung president.
Right, but no, but it's really about, because ultimately Americans. Apparently, Asians have spent a lot of time trying to be like white people. So because of that, when they create and do things, it's because they really just want to be more like us. That's not to say that they are not smart and have great businesses out there, but the level of their businesses don't compare. They only have a couple great big businesses like LG, big Korean company, Samsung, big Korean company, HTC, huge Taiwanese company. But when you look at, but then you look at Apple, their combined revenue of all three companies, of those other three companies, don't equal out to just an Apple. And I'm like, yeah, but isn't Apple, this is my thing, isn't Apple outsourcing most of those things to these other companies? Samsung actually helps build Apple's products. I said, and then Sony builds all the camera stuff for Apple. A lot of the manufacturing for Apple, like some of their, a lot of the specs for their stuff is being built by Samsung. And I'm like, so how are they self-contained? How are they need each other? I said, even if Samsung happens to borrow a few ideas from the things they're building for other people, well, Apple did that too.
Mm-hmm.
But because Apple generates more revenue, they say that it's better. They don't care because, they say, well, look at it. They're cheap labor. You don't pay Americans to do this because Americans are not going to do it for the wages that Koreans will do it. That for what HTC, other people will do it. Chinese will do it for way cheaper. So of course you outsource. That way you have a better bottom line. In Korea.
Yeah, say all that, and then China is about to be #1 on the world revenue charts.
Well, you know what
it's taking over U.S.
Well, yeah, and you know what the thing is about that too is because I know China, one of their they have a version of Amazon. Right, but that's not called Amazon. I forget what it's called, but it's huge, and it just went. I think it was going public, and it smashed everything in the water because it's a Chinese company, and it was just being built and growing, and it just smashed everything in the water. And plus, almost every nation is trying to borrow from China, right? So it's just a very interesting, world situation, but but. As far as and that's when you get the argument, yeah, but they're a communist country, so they can always make their stuff look bigger and better because they don't have to pay anybody. They can just make you work. And yeah, well, because remember that the argument is always when people talk about competitive companies and that this and the other. The argument when you say, well, China's companies are doing better than U.S. companies, well, yeah, but they're a communist country. Their company, their way of doing things is not fair to the people who work in China. So because of that, they basically have slave labor. So that's how come their margins are so good, because you don't have to really pay them. You just tell them what to do. Versus here, and blah blah. So there's always an argument. And when you say,
so minimum wage here is so great.
Huh?
Because minimum wage here is so great.
Oh yeah, of course.
And our healthcare is so wonderful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But in a lot of ways, it still is better than the one in China. So, and that's the argument. But you gotta look at China has over 1 billion people to take care of. You know what I'm saying? So what are we here? I think it was like 300 to 700 million, somewhere between there. So much different specs. But anyway, there's just this idea that the reason why blacks want to be in media is because they want to be like white people. The reason, and then the reason, like just how they say, how you hear all the time, or used to hear, especially a couple years ago, the biggest drain on our resources in this country are the blacks and the non-whites, basically. That, and it always says
the non-white.
Yes.
So basically, it's other than white. You don't even have to specify black.
No, it's always specified. You ever notice that? It is always specified. So then, every time somebody comes up with the actual statistics, they say, well, actually, technically, most of the government assistance stuff is 60-some-odd% white, and then the rest is divided up amongst the other ethnicities. But it's 60-some-odd% white. Well, yeah, but that's different. These people, they just, blah blah. And that argument always gets smashed, like, because it's easier to see. And I think this is what it is. It's easier to see in large populated areas who's, like in New York and in LA and in Chicago and in other large metropolitan areas. It's easier to see, oh, okay, well, all the black people or all the Hispanic people, or and then somebody told me, they said, well, Asians don't get on assistance because they're ashamed to get help. They don't ask for help, so we don't have to give them anything. And I was like, oh, okay, but what about the ones that I know? Oh, then they're probably their parents are probably really embarrassed for them. Like, okay.
Who says these things?
Well, so this is the thing. So a lot of the people that I talk to are media, like people who are actually in charge of getting certain things done in media, whether it's television shows, movies, or whatever. So they've kind of seen enough stereotypes, across their desks. Because you think about how many scripts they see, or think about how many, pushes they're doing. I mean, back in the day, you would have never, ever seen a show named Blackish? Ever?
Nope.
I don't care how funny the show is or how true some of the stereotype things they do, because what they do is they play on things that we've known as black people for a long time that happen within our families, because it's kind of something that's passed down person to person or whatever, right? So certain behaviors like the nod, when black people see other black people, for some reason they just feel the need to nod just to acknowledge that they see you in the room, right? So it's just, and then you don't even know why you do it. You just, what's up? It's the funniest thing. So when I saw that episode, I was like, well, it's kind of true. People just nod for no reason, like, I see you, brother. Because women don't do the nod. Only men do the nod. And then, it's just it's an interesting thing. So, but that show would never have been allowed, with that name alone, it would never have been allowed on a network. Even 4 years ago, it would have never, because that would have started an outcry of, just he'd have been banded by black people. He'd have been, what I'm saying? Like, it'd have been this crazy, crazy thing, and ABC would have said, we can't run that risk. But ABC has decided, huh?
Why is it okay now?
Because now stereotypes are in play. Now it's okay to play toward those things. And because if black people are making fun of black people, it's acceptable.
Do you think that we're going backwards?
Yes. But I think because there's nobody stepping out to basically say, look, these combinations do work. Like, you're seeing more all-black casts. You're seeing all Asian casts for some things. Now, you're seeing, there's one show, I don't even know if it's still on the air, but it came out, it was kind of funny. But this Hispanic woman, she wrote and produced her own show on ABC. It's funny how ABC is doing this. And so it's all Hispanic. But there's no mixture of races or anything pretty much in these shows, except for there might be one token white guy or one token black guy or one token whatever. So, but you're seeing very, ethnic specific shows. And that, remember, we had moved away from that. You had seen a lot more diversity in cast and a lot more of this, that, and the other. But what it's doing is it's creating this situation where now, if you are an Asian woman trying to get into a role, you have to fit these parameters that were set up by the Asians. You know what I'm saying? Because now they can say, look, it's not us that have defined these roles for you. It's your people who've defined these roles for you. And it's funny and it's working. So they will actually put money behind that to say, look, we're not killing your opportunities, you are. But that's what they did in the 80s, and that's what they did in parts of the 90s. Like, remember, if you weren't Urkel as a black guy, then you couldn't get a role for a while because black nerd was in. So
who else was like Urkel?
They actually canceled shows because they didn't have an Urkel-like character. They even tried to create a couple shows that had Urkel-like characters, but couldn't nobody do Jaleel White like Jaleel. Like, couldn't nobody do that because he made up that character. So, because before that, it was, can you be like Eddie Winslow? And he was a terrible actor. Terrible on that. Eddie Winslow was I can't remember his real name, but the guy who played the older brother on that same show. And before that, it was be like Bill Cosby, but don't nobody want to be like Bill right now.
Oh, hell no.
Be like Bill Cosby, and then after that, be like Malcolm Jamal Warner, and then be like Eddie from Malcolm and Eddie, when they did that show together. But it was always, what are black people saying are acceptable to black people? So anything that came out, so when LL Cool J did Bringing Down, In the House, right? He was the first, like Will Smith and LL Cool J were the first rappers that actually did the acting thing on regular television. So LL Cool J, this well-known rapper, became almost a nanny in the house, and it was a good show, And but blacks were like, oh, he's selling out, but the show stayed on for almost 3 seasons. But no, that's not working out. But then you get Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and not to say it was a bad show or anything, but now you got this goofy kid with a spinner top on his hat. He's pretty much bringing back the yes sir, type of thing, with the goofy black thing, and people love it. Now the writing on that show was fantastic. The acting on that show got better and better. Then it became a phenomenon. But the reason why people accepted it is because he lived up to that black stereotype in a way for that era. The loud colored clothes, the goofy personality, and he really overdid that, but it was still good. But people started respecting him when he started doing the movies. Because until that point, he was just a niche little actor. He just kept getting pushed to do bigger and better, so that he could, show people that he was more than, what he
That he can
appeared
do
to be.
Independence Day.
Right. Because before that he did Something Made with Whoopi Goldberg, and he actually had to play a gay role, and that was really really difficult for him, but he really pulled that off. Then he got Independence Day, then he got Bad Boys, then he got, or was it the other way around? Then he got Men in Black. I mean, he was killing the summer for 4 or 5 years straight. And Wild Wild West was cool too, but people wanted more Bad Boy, So
I wanted more Bad Boys.
Yes, you do. You don't mean the Martin Lawrence character, do you? Yeah. But then he did Ali. He killed Ali. Then and then when he came back and did that one with his son, and he killed him. You see what I'm saying? Not even the recent one with his son. I'm talking about the one when his son was still young and he was locked. He was.
Oh my God, the documentary kind of. Well, it's not documentary. What is it called?
It was a true story. It was a. But what was that?
Oh, it's gonna kill me. I need to find out. Hold up. It's gonna kill me.
Because that was a good movie, though. Oh, man.
Oh, I cried.
I
cried.
Yeah. Men cried at that movie. Because look how much that father loved his son and was not going to...
Pursuit of Happiness.
Yes. Pursuit of Happiness. Like, man, that was tough. So he did a lot of great... Now, remember, y'all, after Independence Day, he got paid $20 million per movie, whether it did well or not. And he got back-ended. And he got a production studio built, and a production company built, which was part of one of his deals. So if you guys know how he did business, you'd be like, he only does one movie per year sometimes. And it's not because he can't find good material. It's because he owns a lot of the movies that come out. With his production company. So y'all don't understand. So anyway, but there are just stereotypes that go with all these things. So now these shows are coming out. So yes, we're kind of moving in reverse when it comes down to content, but it's not. But it's only on network TV, and it's really only a couple stations right now. But there are only 3 major networks: ABC, NBC, CBS. So because of that, if one of these networks does something like this, that's a third of the major networks basically saying, hey, this is acceptable. Now, I don't see CBS ever doing something along those lines. They make fun of life situations, like 2 single moms, or, broke chicks, or they make fun of life situations, and they make fun of white people in these situations, or a mixture or a mixed cast or whatever. Now, true, CBS is a predominantly white driven, like predominantly Caucasian, but most networks are, but that's the station that basically says LL Cool J is our black guy. Have you seen that?
But here's the thing: is it acceptable to say, like, oh yeah, CBS can make fun of white people, that's okay, but ABC can't make fun of black people?
No, because they don't make fun of the because what they're doing is they're taking a normal life situation and just playing with it, kind of like dealing with what's that show, Big Bang Theory. Okay, they just take nerds and make fun of nerds, just like how Cosby took a lot of family situations and just made a lot of fun of. These were normal family situations. That's what kind of people always looked up to the show. Even with A Different World, they took normal situations, made fun of it. But when you start making fun of the people so much, of the culture more so than just having fun with the situations, it's a little different. It's kind of like it's like after a while you think, okay, this is how black people are. Like the reason why Cosby, and I heard a quote, the reason why Cosby Show did so well is because they said, because this is how black people should be. And then you watch a show, what was that other show that was out around that time? And it was just people doing dumb stuff, but this is how black people are. So the reason why black people love the show and the reason why white people love the show is because it set, like, the black guy was a doctor. It was the first black doctor on TV in a regular sitcom. It was okay for a black person to be a cop, to be the assistant to the lawyer, you know what I'm saying? Like, to be a spy, to be something that had to deal with guns or whatever. But it was not okay to be a professional. It wasn't okay because, in that time, a doctor was the best you could ever become. That was like the highest, achievement in terms of an industry job, whatever you want to be. Everybody wanted to be a doctor. So the fact that he was a doctor, and what's funny is, think about what's going on with his life right now. The fact that he was a OBGYN, it's just hilarious.
Oh, the irony.
Yeah, right. Now you wonder who picked the role. No. But that was so wrong.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly, right. Did you see that press conference? That was hilarious. When they say, now, if he so chooses to go to court, because they can't do anything. So if he just so chooses to go to court, then he can stand up in front of everybody and say that he's not guilty because he can actually let the jury decide. But this thing's been tried in the public already. So, so what fair trial?
But I heard that this isn't the first time this came up. It happened actually several years ago, like in 2006 or something like that.
Mm-hmm, I think.
And it got buried because he paid him off.
Yes. But I think it's because they were doing a push at the time. Now, this is the other thing too, is paying somebody off apparently is not a sign of guilt or innocence. Now, I tend to think if you're paying somebody to be quiet, you probably did something you shouldn't have been doing, right? Like if CeeLo have paid the girl off, he probably wouldn't have got his show canceled and been forbidden from getting back on The Voice or anything. You heard about that, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, what's up with drugging people just for no good reason? He didn't even sleep with her. He just drugged her for no reason, just so she could taste what X was like.
To see and then so that she would stay with him, or something, right?
No, it was because she said I told him that I didn't know what X was like. I'd never experienced it, and then he slipped some to me, but nothing else happened. It's just that he drugged me. I'm like,
I thought it was that he wanted her to stay with him, like she didn't want her to leave.
Oh, I didn't hear that part. All I heard was because we were, when industry people get together, right, and they just start talking about stuff going on in the industry, and then there's some stuff that makes it to the public, but there's a lot of stuff that doesn't. So, so sometimes I get to hear a lot of stuff that doesn't. I should tell you more of these stories, but no. But I never heard that part. So you might be right, but I never heard that part. We were too busy caught up with. So let me get this straight. You got 2 new shows, plus The Voice every now and then, and you decide that instead of you just want to slip somebody, you're not well.
Brilliant, man.
Mm-hmm. You're not well. So, but yeah. So now with these shows, that are coming out and stuff, it's just very interesting because it actually pushes people back into those stereotypes. Because the only way these shows win is by playing to the stereotypes, right? So, like for instance, Blackish, people down south don't like the show, but people in New York and on the West Coast think the show is hilarious because we know people who fit these demographics that are being portrayed on the show. And because the whole show is based around the idea that, okay, so now I'm a successful black person. Now his wife's a doctor. She's mixed black and white, and he's a advertising executive. So they have pretty good money. They've made it out the hood, right? But because they've done so well for their lives, their children don't understand the black experience. So because they don't understand the black experience, every episode is going back to teaching them something about the black experience, like the nod, or when a girl walks by with a big butt, you don't scrunch up your face like, girl. You're like, then you've missed out on part of the black experience. Like when a big butt walks by, that should get a reaction out of you. I'm like, really? That should get it? Okay.
I mean, that's kind of like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air too, like with Carlton and Will, the differences between them.
Right. But at the same time, you're talking about two people same age, right? And it's coming from two different points of view. You're not talking about a parent teaching their son how to be more black. And then remember, they also had episodes when that became an issue when they kept saying that the Banks were too white to be black. So what they did was they would go back into their activist days. You know, with
Oh yeah.
you see what I'm saying? And they would talk about that, and they would always bring in some lesson about understanding their history. And although they've made it out, they have not. They did not become who they are by just.
Don't forget where you come from.
Right. So that's what this show is kind of like. Except they're saying, hey, if you want to identify with your blackness, you have to do these things. Versus, you know, Will wearing the Malcolm X T-shirt but knowing nothing about the struggle. You see what I'm saying? You know, so he's just thinking, oh, this is what I have to do to be part of the black community. So he's one of those kids that they're trying to teach in this new show, like how to be black. So it's a very interesting dichotomy. Now, what I do like to do with the show is that the father, which is what's his name, Anthony Anderson, is learning from his kids that it's not always a black and white issue. You know, but he's learning that from his kids because his kids don't see color. So they're not leaving it at blah, blah, blah. So that's how come the show didn't get killed right away. That's how come people who are protesting because of the name of the show started watching the show and started enjoying the show because, you know, he has a mixed wife, so she's black and white. So her point of view is because she, you know, is not just straight black. It's not just a, yeah, I'm coming through the struggle, blah, blah. It's more of a, you know, my parents, you know, they found a way to make it work, and so she doesn't see the color issues like he sees them, like his dad who's in the show sees the color issue because they had a whole different upbringing, a whole different experience. I look at it, and I actually, like when I watch it with my wife, I actually say, like, now I do remember these situations, you know, and I do remember my father sitting me down one day and said, boy, if you don't learn to act more black, you're going to be looked at as an Uncle Tom, or back then he called Uncle Tom, then after a while they called me whitewashed. You know? Well,
here's my question. If that actually conjured up memories for you, and it's something that is actual black experience for many people, then how is it so wrong to portray it on TV?
Because all they do is they do it so because it's not so much that it's wrong. It's that it's kind of a thing because it's kind of slick. Okay, so what you're doing is you're making an all black cast talk about, you know, to be more black, you must be more hood, almost, right? So it makes you feel like, okay, so to be more hood is what black really is to be hood, is to be gangsta, is to be, you know, rough around the edges, and that's what black is, right? But the kids today, a lot of the kids who are, you know, born into situations where they don't have these issues that, you know, we had to learn to survive and come through and make it up out of, that, you know, now you're telling them, no, you're not black, because you're not doing it the way that I did it when I didn't have what you have. And I don't.
But isn't it just going from the different generations? Like you said, the TV show also shows the kids teaching the parent that that's not the way.
Well, yes, but that's what I'm saying. It's like I like the way they switched it, but that's because, well, did you see the protest that happened when the show was announced?
No.
So they went back and they started making changes to it, but the people who created the show were Anthony Anderson and the guy who created Top Model. That's how come what's her name doesn't get as much money as people think she gets for that show, you know, because she didn't create it. Your soul sister. So I don't like. I like the show. Now, personally, I like the show, but is it good for media if you're trying to break certain things down? I don't think so. And I think it's because it makes it play like the show is very entertaining. I think it's great. It does bring back flashbacks, just like Fob is going to bring back, you know, things to the Asian community that are just, you know, funny or reminiscent or blah blah. That's not the point. But if you say, okay, this show is successful because it plays to the stereotypes, then now there are no stereotypes in media for Asian leading lady, for instance, except for assistant role or a lawyer or a ninja warrior, basically, you know, Nikita. You know, so, and what this is going to play to is, unless you're going to be the goofy Asian, which is, that's the other role. You can be the goofy comic. You know what I'm saying? So that's what they're playing to. You remember Anthony Anderson? He used to be always the fat buddy. Remember that? Yep. What movie was it? Fat Buddy. But then when he got onto SVU, he had to lose weight and he had to get in better shape. because he couldn't always be Fat Buddy on that show. So it was just a very interesting, just so much that happened. Now, true, he had a heart attack or something too, right? Was it a heart attack or something? But anyway, so this is kind of what's happening. So from my perspective, as somebody sitting in my seat, I'm like, okay, how do I shop my talent into what is happening in media today? How do I get them to see that there's more to my talent than just this face and this ethnicity and this, because people go back into pockets where when you had racially diverse shows, people played all kinds of roles, and it wasn't a big stretch to go from the assistant to the person taking over the company one day, because they knew the business backwards and forwards. It wasn't hard to make that adjustment. But if you're saying, well, now this person can primarily only play Goofy, or can only play this, or like the woman, the Indian woman who has her show, the Mindy Project, right? She's a doctor, yes, but she's pretty much a love-struck. She's smart, but not. Like, I can't even watch the show anymore. It used to make me laugh, but now it's just sad, because she's.
I can't watch the show because of her voice, but I'm just tonal like that. But she wrote. I mean, she's the writer for that show. She writes her own episodes.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
She's not the sole writer, but
what she did was she created an ambiance that women, because what she was marketing to was lonely women. Remember when that show came out? It was right around the height of internet dating, before it really got to where it is now, where it's normal. That show came out, and it's hard to believe, 3 years ago. And in those 3 years, people needed a reason to laugh because they remember they were still broke. They still needed something that was a little off, because it was off enough. Like New Girl, came out not that far after that, but New Girl wouldn't have worked as well if the Mindy Project hadn't came out before it, because that brought awkward back. That girl was smart but awkward, like just. You know what I'm saying? So taboo enough, I guess is what the word is. It's just awkward and taboo enough to bring people's attention, to get people's attention. And of course, it could have only worked on Fox. It only could have worked on Fox. So, but my thing now is, I don't mind so much that people make fun of themselves. I mean, we do it all the time here, in our situation a lot. But what I don't necessarily think, but we have a very diverse cast in our little group here, so people can talk, because they'll say Jules has black, all people always think you got black in you because of how you act, and then people always think that I'm not all black, right? But sometimes they wonder if we're both the same gender, depending on the day, but
it's true.
Yeah, it's true. Why does he have so much heart? Why does she think so much like a man? But we're a good balance, and this is why people kind of enjoy the experience. But the diversity in the cast gives a lot more to play with, and that way you're not just saying this is how all people are. Like you get to see a lot of diversity in the roles they play. You get to see, like Carlton and Will. The reason why they work so well is because you saw what was quote unquote the whitewash and the actual hood version, but that was still a yeah, and really he was still kind of hood. He was a kind of light hood. You see what I'm saying? Like Will,
yeah,
make him too hood because then Jazz would have no role. You see what I'm saying? Jazz wasn't even hood. Jazz was ghetto. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God! Remember Jules? Jazz and Jules?
Oh yeah. And that was a girl from A Different World.
Yes.
No, from the Cosby Show. Then she went on Different World after that. But yeah, she was, what's her name's best friend? She was the Cosby's niece best friend when the niece came to move in with them. So because she was always in love with Lance. Remember Lance? So man, y'all, it's like we're going down memory lane. But basically, all these stereotypes are playing to the disadvantage of a lot of people who want to go into different things, because well, there are opportunities out there by locking people into just certain things, like for instance, one of the biggest stereotypes out there right now, and that I deal with on an almost daily basis, is that there are there's the blind or the lowest employable disability out there, because we're basically told that there's too much liability in hiring a blind person. So because of that, it's automatically assumed. And this is what I found out today, or was it? What was it last week? I don't know when I talk to people anymore. But it's pretty much assumed that because blind people are not employable, that they don't have the skill set to do the job. So it's a very interesting thing. So no matter how, I mean, I know a guy right now who this year alone has been on, I don't know, 50, 60 interviews, and they keep telling him, we like you, but you're not the right person for this job, or whatever. So it's a very, it's not the best situation. Let's put it like that. It's not the best situation for people. So when we go into these stereotypes, we're really talking about, okay, what's going to work? Are the stereotypes real? Well, let's be real. A lot of stereotypes are based on reality, or based on what people have seen to be true on experiences. And if you get enough individual experiences together, it becomes fact to most people. So that's so that's kind of a problem. The other issue that you're going to run into is that after a while, people are going to start looking at you as though you are that disability. Not disability. Good Lord, you are that stereotype. So where am I going with this? It's real simple. A lot of people, when they meet, other ethnicities or even their own, they have an idea of what's going to happen based on what they believe the stereotype of that ethnicity, financial demographic, upbringing is like. They believe, excuse me, sorry y'all, but I told y'all I was sick, so I was trying to, talk as long as possible, but after a while, it happens. You gotta blow your nose, you gotta blow your nose. So, excuse me. Anyway. One thing I've learned recently is that there are a lot of stereotypes that people put onto their own demographic, or especially when it comes down to relationships. Like, if you ask a black man why he is not with a black woman, a lot of the answer is, well, let's see. There are a couple of them, but I'm going to give them the most popular one, I believe, is because I don't need somebody always yelling at me, or because the stereotype is that black women are always loud and they're always opinionated and they're always going to be bully. They have bully personalities. That is the main stereotype for black women. Now, when people ask, when you actually get to know the larger black women demographic, it's very interesting because it's the minority of them that are louder and more bold, boisterous and whatever. But that's from hanging out like with family reunions and meeting friends and all that. Because I know it's funny because a lot of black people that I know, a lot of black women that I know, they primarily just like to read, and they like to, they're very calm. Now, they can get fired up if it's worth getting fired up about, but they don't walk around all fired up like you see in reality shows. Can you imagine having to be fired up all the time like that?
Well, here's the thing. In reality shows, are they ever accurate? They're all scripted.
But there are people who now want to shape their life after what they see in reality shows. So,
but then that's the problem. So the ones that shape their life after reality shows, that is their real life. They are like that.
Because they say, okay, well, that's what I'm gonna be like, because you see that, okay, like, because I was trying to figure this out for weeks. Like, what makes the women that you watch in these shows people that you want to be like? Like, why do young women want to be like women in these reality shows? And the answer I was able to discover was because they get to wear nice things and because they have cool lives. And I'm like, huh. And you think that they got these opportunities because of their attitude?
Well, that's they think yeah, that is exactly what they think because Kim Kardashian got her career started because of her sex tape. So did so many other of these people
Mm.
who, has all these reality shows. And so they're modeling, they're like, if I do what they did, if I do wear the clothes that they wear, do my makeup the way they do it, you know, hang out with the people that they, talk the way they talk, then I will have my own show. I will be able to be famous and drive nice car and all those superficial stuff that people think are so awesome.
It's
Unfortunately,
and so
it's a sad reality.
Yeah, it's it's just it's something because you see more and more people shying away from the idea of being a role model. Like it's a very I've noticed it over the last, especially the last year. I've seen a lot of people shy away from being an outspoken voice or being a role model. So you see more individuals on actual Facebook and things like that who are trying to now become the new role models because a lot of entertainers have given up they say, well, although we have a voice, we don't want to use it in a way that's going to possibly cause us to have to choose a side. Because if we choose a side, that might work against something that we want to do in the future. So although I understand this thing, my brand can't support this thing. So I have to stay very neutral or stay out of it. And then you get unless you're one of the activist celebrities, but those people get tuned out pretty quickly nowadays because they're always talking about some kind of cause. So because I remember there was this big thing going around Facebook and YouTube for a while. It's like, when will the people with the actual voices in these communities actually step forward when these riots and things are going on? Like, where's Jay-Z and where's Beyonce and where is this person and where is that person? The people that these young ones want to listen to, the ones they want to model their lives after, why do they disappear when things are getting violent and out of control? Why don't they step up and say, hey, this is not how you do things, and when I come to your town to talk to you, I want to know that you have a town for me to come to talk to you in.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we come to your town and put on a free event to get you guys out of this fight state of mind and back into a unity state of mind like they used to do back in the day? When riots and stuff used to happen back in the day, or when a lot of social discourse used to happen, there was always some kind of concert or event to bring the community back together. It was an outdoor event. It was a free event because the celebrities or the labels could afford to do this to keep people back, because the more you destroy, the more it's going to cost, and the more it's going to cost to put it back together, the less you're going to have to be able to spend on the products they want you to buy. So why don't we do a big event where there's a Jay-Z and a Beyonce and a Neo and a whatever, and let's bring this piece back, and let's bring up an independent group, out of your neighborhood that we see is really working hard to bring the community back together. You see, why don't they? You see what I'm saying? Like, why wouldn't you do that? Shoot, at that point, the city would give you the location for free just to get the stuff back.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But nobody steps forward to say, this is not. All they say is in a tweet, this is a shame. You guys need to get your act together. When can we as a people learn to not do? You know what I'm saying? Like, great, it's easy to do in a tweet. You probably still riding around in your limo talking about when can we. So but people have stopped trying to be role models. They don't want, it's almost like they're trying to, in a weird way, it's like they're trying to create a divide. They're trying to say, that's you and this is us, and because that's you, and right now the you that you are over there is not going to really benefit us. There's no need for us to say anything about, you. But now that you're upset, I can write a song that talks about why you're upset, so I can sell that song to you, so you can bump that while you're rioting. Somebody did that for the Ferguson thing. There was an anthem to the riots. So, entertainment. Anyway, you guys, like we said, we're sorry we started the show late. We just, things happen. But the thing is, when it comes down to stereotypes, like, don't let them influence the way you think about the people you're around or next to, because yes, there are some things that are just true. Like, there are gang members out there, and gang members, for the most part, are trying to, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, get their way in whatever way they want to get it. So if they're trying to rob you, blah blah, there are some things you just know. Stay away from these things. There are some fun stereotypes too. Like when I go